Hi, everyone. Just wanted to post some information about Chapter 4, which is all about establishing a bargaining unit and organizing as far as that process goes. So the main highlights that I want you to know for this chapter first is determining the appropriate unit. So, whenever a union comes in, they need to figure out, okay, who are we representing? Because, if you come into, like, say, a factory that has, 10,000 workers, maybe, 2 or 3,000 might be, like managers and department supervisors and accountants and marketing people. Usually in a situation like that, those people aren't going to be necessarily part of the bargaining unit. So a union has to figure out what is the appropriate unit. So are we just going to, just anybody who works in the factory, are we going to unionize? Or are we going to look at, okay, only people with certain jobs like, steam fitter or pipe fitter, things along those lines. So your book does a good job of explaining, the appropriate unit that has to be determined. And this is kind of a joint process between union and management. So make sure you read on what is an appropriate unit. So and there's a term in there that you may have never heard before. It's called accretion. It's basically, jobs that get added later could be part of the unit. So it used to be, whenever a unit would come in, they would establish the bargaining unit. Well, let's say if the factory grows, for example, new jobs might be added, new positions might be created. That's going to happen in any organization. Well, the term accretion means that the union is allowed to add those people if they're part of the overall bargaining unit. It used to be management would try to make sure that those units couldn't be added if they created new jobs. So there were several court cases that kind of determine that. So make sure you know the term accretion, which means that unions are allowed to add jobs or add people to the bargaining unit as management creates new jobs. And then when we get into the actual bargaining process, your book talks about how the actual process of bargaining. So, there's two terms that I want you to know. One is a business agent. Think of the business agent basically as the negotiator. This is the person who kind of handles all the business up to bargaining. And a lot of times in a bargaining, in like a negotiation, both sides might have an attorney or have, people that are specialized in that. But when you hear the term business agent, it is at least how we're going to use it for purposes of this class. Just think of that as the negotiator, somebody who's doing all the business leading up to the event and then after, but is also going to be at the table doing the negotiation. So make sure you know the term business agent, as well as the term steward. Usually a steward is somebody, an on-the-job representative at the department level who's kind of the representative for people at that unit. So if we have a bunch of pipe fitters, for example, usually they will elect one person amongst their group who is called a steward. And the steward will go to the negotiating sessions, who will bring information back to the unit and say, hey, this is my opinion, what I think we should do or shouldn't do. But usually the steward is somebody who has that same job title as everybody else in the unit, but has been elected by the unit to represent them in the actual negotiation. So that way you can kind of keep a local unit, actively engaged when you're actually at the bargaining table. So the term steward. In your book, if you look at, I think it's figure 4-3, it's called the organizing process. So make sure you review that process. Again, I don't expect you, for exam purposes, to memorize every little aspect. But I think figure 4-3 does a great job of kind of showing you from the start all the way to the finish, what does the organizing process look like? How is it negotiated? How does the process flow, essentially? So make sure you read through that section and understand those details. Again, I don't expect you to memorize it. I would never ask you to, list every aspect of the organizing process, but at least be familiar with how the process flows, as it relates to the final exam. And then the last thing that I want you to know for Chapter 4 is about the decertification process. So, a union could be, active in an organization, but for whatever reason, and your book discusses those reasons, the members of the union may want to get rid of the union altogether. They're not representing them well. They don't feel like the union's treating them well. They're not getting anything out of the money that they pay towards the union. So they decide, what? We don't even want to have a union at all. So this process allows, through a vote, to have the membership get rid of the union, essentially, or what they call decertifying the union. So make sure you read through and understand what that process looks like as far as decertification. So, all right, well, those are the details I want you to know for Chapter 4, establishing a bargaining unit and the organizing process. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know. Thanks.